So let's say you're building a new assistant in Voiceflow and you want to make it in a different language. So to do that, you're going to go over to new assistant here. You're going to hit create, let's say test. And then in the language modal, you can select your language. But if you don't see your language, there's a ton of ways that you can still customize your assistant to speak the language that you are. So when you're looking through these languages, let's say I want to do something in Swedish and I can't find Swedish here. That's totally okay. Really, all these built-in languages do is just add some built-in intents and entities in the language that you have picked. And so let's go ahead and hit English because we can't find our language. So I'll show you how to customize it to make it still speak that way. So we'll go create assistant, and we're going to now try and create a Swedish chatbot, even though I selected English. So the first thing to note is that all the UI in Voiceflow, so publish, share, anywhere where there's like text, this is always going to be in English regardless of the language you're building in, just because that's how we've designed it. But what really matters in your assistant is what the assistant is saying to the user and if it understands the user. And so what you're going to do is just obviously go ahead and get rid of this, and let's start building out our assistant. So within the text step, you can go ahead and write whatever different language you'd like. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just write hala, which is Swedish for hello. And then from there, there's a couple things that we can do. So the first one is when we're using the AI steps, we want to make sure that all the AI actually responds in Swedish to the user. So the first thing we want to do is go to our knowledge base, go into the global knowledge base settings right here, and we are going to go ahead and change the system settings. So these system settings are what the instructions, like custom instructions for the assistant. So you're going to want to give it very clear instructions to say, you are a Swedish chatbot, you are a Swedish assistant, you only speak in Swedish, do not speak in any other language. Perfect. So let's go ahead and copy the instructions. And I would also recommend using the AI model Claude Instant. It uses the same amount of tokens as GPT 3.5, but it's better at listening to instructions. So it'll be more likely to actually stick to this language. So let's hit save. The next thing we want to do is do the same thing for our response AI. So now this is going to work whenever we are using a knowledge base. So like, let's say, for example, we are using a knowledge base. Because it's in our settings, it'll respond in Swedish. When you're using the AI model, you want to make sure that you clarify that on the bottom of the system here as well. So we're going to put in the same prompt, choose Claude Instant, and now we can do something like, provide travel tips for the user. And you'll see that when it actually responds, it's going to be in Swedish. Great. And so you can see that it gave me an entire sentence, entire paragraph just in Swedish. And so for the user who's actually using your assistant, they're only going to see Swedish. And so those are the two areas you can do with the AI steps. The other one now is around entities and intents. And so you can learn more about entities and intents in my other videos. But entities and intents are created entirely with your own custom data. So let's say we wanted to create a flow for purchasing. And obviously we wanted this to be in Sweden. So Swedish, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new intent. And we're going to call the intent purchase. And this is what purchase is in Swedish. And we're going to give it an example phrase in Swedish, which is I want to buy. And so let's hit enter. And let's just have the AI generate a couple more. But what you can do is you can just keep entering phrases in Swedish that represent something that a user would say if they want to buy. And when you create intent, it's actually going to recognize this. So if I hit create intent here, and let's go and say, I don't actually speak Swedish, so let's maybe say respond to the user, tell the user that they want to buy something, and then I'm just going to say again, only respond in Swedish. So now if I go ahead and actually train my assistant, and let's just go ahead and add a really quick empty step here, so that way we can use the NLU. See, so the assistant is trained. So if I go ahead and say one of the, so you can see here it's responding to me in Swedish, but I go ahead and say something in Swedish. See, it was actually able to recognize that I wanted to do the purchase intent and then responded back to me. So to the user, this entire experience is going to be in Swedish. On the Voiceflow side, we are designing it in English, but we are making sure that the assistant knows with the AI steps to only speak in Swedish. And so that's how you would do it in Voiceflow. Again, you can use any language to do this. It doesn't need to be one of the pre-built ones. These are little tricks. And the last thing I'll mention too is if you want to make this a bit easier so we don't have to retype, the instructions every time you use the AI step, all you have to do is just make an empty AI step like this with the system of response that you want, right click and hit add to library. So you can say Swedish AI step, and that way it's always going to be in your library. So if you ever want to use the AI step, then you can pull this out and you can see it's already pre-populated with this system prompt. So this is where it'll be really useful when you're designing for reusability and enabling you to build quickly in a different language on Voiceflow. So that's all. Let us know if you have any questions by hitting the support chat up below or by joining our Discord and asking there.